So this is the chat about everything, no meaning intended. This is one world, three views. What are we talking about today, John?
Is meaning discovered or invented?
Interesting. Is meaning discovered or invented?
I'm
Uh,
happy to start on this one.
go
Go on
for it.
then.
Go for it, Henry.
So, I believe that meaning is discovered, and that all stems from the fact that we are given a God-given purpose. So, I believe that when we're born, everything is written. Maybe not like decision to decision day by day, but at least our destiny is there for us to be unlocked, to be fulfilled. And yeah, I do believe there's a level of things happen to get to where we're supposed to be going and to do what we're supposed to do. And yeah, so I definitely think discovered for myself personally.
So run that past me again, Henry. You believe in destiny then? Do you think your future's defined for you?
To some degree, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think it's a bit of both. I think you got a part to play in it, and it's already kind of like it's unfolding for you. I don't know. I think it's both discovered and invented because it's invented through us, by us, as us, but it's discovered in our human form. So I know it sounds a bit like I'm sitting on the fence and getting splinters in my arse,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what I think. I think is there's a duality of being a human being, and I think it's both discovered and invented.
So
Definitely, a
if
lot of
it's
things are invented.
invented by us on some level, where and how is it invented? Like, is it
Mm,
through our thoughts? Is it through like, yeah, what?
exactly that.
Right.
Through our thoughts. So each of us kind of has a thought about the world and what we see and how we're kind of like living in reality, whatever that is. And that is invented through our little mind, but it's also part of the bigger mind of the whole universe or spiritual kind of like
But it
spiritual
doesn't
existence.
it doesn't always materialize, does it? Because I've quite often sat there and tried to see myself invent a way of life for myself. And I put myself in the position where it could, well, and try to be that person, and it's not materialized.
You could argue it has. You could argue that you have materialized exactly what you have created in this meat suit of a human that you
Well,
are, John.
I'd go with Henry on this one. It's discovered, really. I think where you would, I mean, we all go to school and we get this idea of often your mum, your dad, the teachers, what you're going to do when you grow up. I want to be a boxer. I want to be the next Bill Gates. I want to be this. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a driver and all this kind of stuff. Um, and it's if I look at myself now, where I am now, that was discovered most definitely. I tried all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've moved house 27 times. I don't know how I've lost count of the jobs I've done, different kind of job. I've been a scuba diver, I've worked in theatre, I've done all sorts of stuff. And now I sit here now in my 50s, and I know that I can get up and do my work, and every day is a new day. Everything day is a different. This is my destiny. This was most definitely from a profession, um, and it's so that's that. Whether that's is meaning discovered or invented. Well, what's meaning? What's meaning? Is meaning is does that mean? Um, Is it something that you leave behind, or is it something that you do? What is the meaning? What we're talking about when it says meaning? Are we discovering? a profession for each, or is it the values that we so I mean, my question is, I'd question the question. What's
I,
meant by the meaning? Is it if the if the question is the meaning invented or discovered? What's meant by meaning? What's your interpretation, Henry, of the word meaning?
well, I think meaning is almost like value. What is to, in a sense, it's like, and obviously I believe that we have inherent value because we're made in the image of God, you know? And
Yeah.
obviously I believe that we have the spirit of God inside of us, and that on some level determines our value, our meaning, you know?
Uh-huh. And Tim, what do you think the meaning is?
I think it's made up by us. I agree with Henry. I think it's a bit like our values and beliefs. Values and beliefs and meaning are invented by us. What you discover through life is kind of like a personal journey, if you like. I don't like that word journey because I don't know whether that's right or not. But you know, you're describing you discovered something through different jobs and having an identity as whatever it is, a scuba diver, a man in the midlife, you know, somebody who works in a theatre, whatever it is, somebody who did a lot of extensive travel, sales, marketing, whatever. But that's an identity that we're putting on ourselves, like
That's right.
that, and that's the meaning that we're putting on ourselves.
Well, if I was to ask myself the same question, uh, I actually had that question um, several times in life. And I think probably the most recent one was when I became a father. And I asked myself then, what is the meaning of life? Um, and the way I explore things is I write things down. It's rather cathartic for me. I write things down. And I think at the end, what the meaning of life for me was happiness. I could put it down to one word. It's not about anything other than happiness. And I thought that was quite interesting. And so I explored that, and I found actually there was a person asked the Dalai Lama the same question. You know, what's the meaning of life? And he then said the same. He said happiness. But how you go about happiness is the difficult question.
Well, it's going to be different for different people, isn't it?
Yeah,
Including their meaning attached to happiness.
yeah.
But one thing's for sure, from a kind of like spiritual perspective, I suppose, rather than a nihilist and a Christian perspective, is that not only is it the meaning that you attach to it, but it's something that we do discover. So I guess I'm leaning towards agreeing with both of you that it is discovered when we talk about happiness.
Mm.
My
Because
issue, sorry, Tim, sorry.
yeah, no, go for it.
My issue with the meaning of life being happiness is, well, firstly, I think we need to nail down exactly what happiness is. But if happiness is just enjoyment, pleasure, then that's just hedonism, right? And that's not, for me, that's like worship of the ego. That's like in Islam, like worship of the ego is the enemy. And obviously that's not my beliefs, but it's similar
Mm.
in from a Christian sense as well. And
But is
I
the
just,
byproduct of worshipping your ego happiness?
well, no, but I think if you
Well,
happiness could be hedonism, right? Like if I have 6 wanks a day and that makes me really happy, like is that the meaning of life? You know, if I stuff my face with all the foods that I want that make me happy in the moment, that doesn't lead to fulfilling happiness, right? So
no,
I think we
I
have to
think.
nail down what happiness is because if it's like long-term contentment, fulfillment,
Hmm.
I don't know if I see that as happiness quite, you know, because I could be like I'm not happy in every given moment. I don't wake up and like with a huge smile on my face, but I feel content, I feel fulfilled, you know? And I
No,
think
no, I
happiness
think.
has been, I don't know, we use it as this word as like, oh yeah, are you happy? Are you, you know, and I think what we really mean is content, fulfillment. Maybe not, but that's why I'm just getting to that, I
Yeah,
guess.
Yeah, and
Can I just get this out on the table? Because, like, when I was listening to you, I was filled with the imagery of you surrounded by cream cakes, masturbating. So, like, I just needed to get that out of my head because, like, I couldn't concentrate. But I totally with you. That's hedonism and that's going after the ego. Sorry, John.
yeah. But then when I explored, when I went down the rabbit hole, what makes me happy was seeing a smile on my daughter's face. Now, okay, um, is that an ego thing or no? Not. The thing is that happiness is is when people smile. I think when you and it's not a material thing. Some of the happiest people I've seen in the world are some of the poorest people. So when I was traveling in India, in South America, um, some of the nicest people that I ever met were not materially rich.
I agree.
You know, some of the saddest people that I've spoken to have everything materially in life. So I think that from that perspective, happiness is
I agree.
it's not a material thing,
I
Henry.
think it's largely where expectation meets reality. And the reason I say that is because over in the East,
Yeah.
maybe they don't expect as much, right? In the sense in the West, we're constantly seeing, Instagram, we're seeing young men making millions, girls on yachts doing this and that, and they say comparison is the thief of joy, right? And we've got so much comparison, and we seem a lot more miserable, especially, going on through the world. I don't think we're getting happier or more fulfilled. I think we're going the other way, you know.
Well, yeah, but that's interesting because I often listen to my generation. They'd say back in the day it was. I think they're looking at life through rose-tinted glasses, but we've all got difficulties. The generation before us, the boomers, they went through the war, they had nothing, you know. Um, us in the 80s, it was all about money. They even had songs about having wedges of money and, going out and living it large and having the Porsche, having the mobile phone and, looking the yuppie, you know. And if you weren't the yuppie, then you were,
You might
but
have to explain that phrase for any Gen
young
Zers
and
listening.
upcoming professional people. I think that I don't know
Something like that.
exactly the breakdown of the word, but that's what it is.
Young urban professional, I thought it was, but
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, upcoming, upping.
Someone aspiring to material things and
Yeah,
a career
completely,
trajectory
completely. And
online.
Margaret Thatcher was all about everybody having loads of money, going out and buying, going out with a wedge. People used, I used to go out and people were talking about how much money you got, 1 or 2 inches, because it was cash. It wasn't, we didn't have debit cards or credit cards, really. We didn't go out with those. It was cash. And it was the talk, we spoke of how many inches of notes you'd have.
I'm
So,
glad you clarified it was about the notes because when we were talking about how many inches you had when you were younger, it was a
but
totally
you've got
different
one
thing.
track mind too. You got one track, but I think I think I hear where you're coming from, and I think that you know there will come a point in everybody's life you start to think, well, I've got the house, the dog, the children, the handbag, the car on the road. Why am I so bloody upset? What is the point to life? You know,
Well,
uh,
that only comes if you go into that pursuit with the idea that it's gonna be fulfillment, it's gonna be happiness, right? Like it tells us in the Bible that the pursuit of money is like chasing the wind.
yeah,
And it's I think you only get to that place if that's what you believe. You believe that okay, I'm broke now. I don't have the car I want, I don't have the house I want, but when I get there, then I'll be happy. But I
yeah.
think if you do get there, that's a dark place because being happy before, at least you think there's something that's going to unlock happiness, but yeah, imagine getting there thinking that's the answer and realizing it's not, you know?
Is,
No, you
So,
want.
isn't that just somebody attaching meaning to that thing and to the pursuit of that or having that thing? That's when you go back to ego, isn't it? It's like if your ego says that and places meaning on them, then that's the meaning it'll have. Isn't that why Jesus flipped tables in the chapels or whatever? I've got a question for you about uh, ego, actually, John, because you mentioned for you, happiness as a father was seeing, a smile on your daughter's face. And I
Yeah.
get that, I'm a father too, and yeah, definitely, you want them to be
You
happy.
get a
You
feeling
do
of
anything
happiness.
you'd want that you
Yeah.
could, to help them find happiness. But I had a conversation with my daughter last night about, spending too much online because actually she's pursuing dopamine hits by kind of like buying it. My house looked like DPD depot the other day. There were so many parcels in for her, and I was like, unless you sort this habit out soon, you're going to project that into adult life, and it may
So
be
she's getting
neurodiversity
fixed
and
from buying stuff, was she?
yeah, and it might be neurodiversity stuff because we know that neurodiverse people are lower in dopamine, so we're more likely to kind of like do activities like addictive behavior, online shopping, gambling, taking drugs, risky
So what was
behavior.
your question about my ego?
So my yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked, but it's all the chat about everything, eh? No meaning intended. But my question for you then, as a father,
Yeah.
is the happiness that you're placing on seeing a smile on your daughter's face, is that not just ego in itself? Isn't it you kind of going, if my daughter's happy, then I am happy. I have made it. That is what the purpose of life is. Isn't that your ego talking?
No, I wouldn't have put it down to I wouldn't have allocated that word to that.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't have a daughter, but I see that as something bigger than yourself,
Yeah.
Another human being. I think ego
It's a
is almost
central.
always serving self, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know,
Well,
someone
to
like
a
Andrew
certain
Tate
extent,
was having
I
200
hear what
kids,
you're
and
saying.
you know what I'm saying? Maybe, but
I hear what you're saying, and you're right. I would agree with you on that, Henry. But on the same note, if I'm going to be critical about myself, it made me happy
mm,
seeing somebody else happy.
but why? Was it because I'm so great and I shut her out my nuts and I'm awesome, or was it like, I
No,
no, like I don't know, I don't. That doesn't feel rooted in ego to me, but.
no, it doesn't. And the thing is, isn't it nice to give a gift to somebody and that makes them happy?
You
If
could
you
argue that's rooted in ego, actually, in a way. I don't
is
know.
it?
Maybe, yeah, because I don't know. I think we're wired up to feel good about helping people, right? So
Well,
I'm just
that's
saying,
certainly on main. If you look at the social media now, there are people that give tips to the waitresses of thousands of pounds, and I just think, well, yeah, okay, that made
What,
you
and
that
then
made
put
you
it on
feel
social media as a virtual signal of
yeah,
how
and then,
great they are.
yeah,
That is
I,
definitely
I would
egotistic.
question that whether but on the same note, is it they're doing it to please themselves and others. But I think that the fact that they're uploading it and monetizing it, that defeats the purpose of it.
Can I say something, gents? We're talking as if the ego is something to avoid or something that might be negative or something to kind of get out of. And from my perspective, actually, that might be a really good thing to discover, is like how much does ego play a part in your life and moving away from that to the bigger, greater good. I'm all for that. But actually, ego plays a really crucial part for us as a human being.
Yeah,
From a human perspective, it serves a purpose just like our higher self. It does something else. It keeps us, it's got a role in our survival. But yes, if you're too greedy, too gluttonous, too selfish, too, whatever, then it becomes a bit of a problem because it's out of balance. But it does serve us. It shouldn't be something that is seen as evil because it's actually part of our human existence.
well, I
yeah,
would argue that
yeah.
the flesh is sinful, right? So when we follow our ego, we're adhering to our lower self to a degree. You just spoke about higher, lower self. I do agree, like on a survival level, like maybe you could say, oh, my ego is like my belief of me, and that like if I believe I'm the guy and I'm capable of all this, like there's a level of, yeah, okay, it could bring worldly success, but then even that's empty, you know? So my question is where does it serve us? How does it
Yeah, agree.
I think, I think
It serves us in terms of survival a little bit, but when it gets when you're pursuing things of the flesh, like surrounding yourself with cream cakes and having a wank on the bed, then yes, it's definitely a negative and evil thing that we're subject to because of the seduction or sin of the flesh. I get that totally, but it is the thing that says I am this and I need to protect myself. It creates an identity for ourselves. It helps us kind of socialize. It helps us not die. You know, it
there's a fine line. Now, listening to you both, I was thinking, okay, so ego is an innate thing. It needs to be controlled, I believe. So much so that I was thinking, okay, this is not a new thing, ego. I mean, I'm sure that going back to the days when we were all living in caves, the guy that's gone out and come back with a fresh kill, he's going to stand there with his the dead animal on his shoulder, and he's going, "Oh, look at me, I'm
I'm
top,
the man
I'm top banana," and he then struts around, going, "Look at me, I can hunt, I can provide, and I'm the number one, I'm king of the castle, I
for
am."
sure. I'm the
And then,
alpha
but then that becomes rather that becomes a problem because he's then boasting, and people become look at him and think, well, "What a bit of a prick! Look at him." Uh, where on the other hand, if somebody comes back and is modest about their kill and puts the food on the table and then just um, lets everybody eat together, it would be it's more of a virtuous way of life rather. And so ego, I'm sure back in the day when we were all living in caves, then the guy who had the big ego got slapped down a few times from the guy who's got big muscles and is a better fighter than, and going, shut the fuck up. Who do you
but
think you are coming out giving it the large?
But
We're all
where's
equal
the
here.
line that becomes too much ego or not enough ego? Like that's made up. That is a made up meaning. So whoever's looking at the person coming back with the kill in the cave is assigning that meaning to whatever they're perceiving that person to be, whether they're being like a bit of a
Themselves to
prick
be.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
something
I think
more.
that they're doing it to a certain extent to attract a mate so that they could, because they show themselves as providers, and having the wealth of knowledge of going out killing and providing. And while that's all very attractive, if you're strutting around like a peacock looking like a knob, that's not very attractive either. And the thing is, if their children see how daddy reacts when he's got a kill, they're going to do the same. So um, this sort of ego that this person's had, this exaggerated ego of their self-worth, is then rubbed off onto their children, and I suspect other people within the community who aspire to be like the hunter, the successful hunter. So I think
I've got to plug my laptop in before it dies. Otherwise, my laptop will have no ego.
uh, so I think it can be reined in. But I think we're detracting from the topic, which is
Well,
me.
sort of, because we're attributing meaning to things, aren't we? So, and we're
We're
discovering
going
what
down the
that is.
ego route rather than the meaning. Is meaning discovered or invented?
But that's my point. As an ego serves us, it might serve us to get a mate, as you've just described as an example, but it also creates and invents meaning. And through that ego, we can discover things like, oh, I was a bit of a prick, or I should be more. Humble.
Yeah.
So, John, I was a little bit surprised by your answer, right? Because and I don't want to put words in your mouth at all, but my perception of a nihilist was leaving me to think that maybe you didn't think we had any meaning. Because for me, the meaning comes from God. The meaning comes from the fact that we have inherent value. But if you don't believe in God and there is no God, then how do we actually have meaning? If we just die and that's the end and nothing happens, then what is the meaning to you?
Good point.
Well, there isn't a meaning, I don't think. I think we're
Okay, because well, okay, because
So it's
obviously,
neither discovered or invented. I thought you said it was discovered.
well, it depends what the meaning of life. It comes down to what I said before. What's meant by the meaning? Are we talking about the meaning of life?
Which we've said is happiness, which I think it sounded like none of us had a problem with.
no, I don't agree. It's happiness.
Mm,
Well,
okay.
that for me is when it says, is meaning discovered or invented? Um,
Uh-huh.
I think what I would that question to me is, what is the meaning of life? Is it invented or is it discovered? And I would say it's discovered. And I don't think it's a material thing. And I don't think it's a God. But I think it's important to, I think it's knowledge. I think at the time when I asked myself, I think knowledge, I think when I sit down of an evening, if I'm not learning, then I think I'm wasting my time. I really am. I like to learn. And I, I, I remember
Wasting
once
your time. That's an interesting. I'm going to pick up on Henry's point a little bit now because
just let me finish what I was saying. And I thought, I'm here once, okay? And the most and if knowledge is important to me, why have I not read the Bible? Because it is, in fact, it's the most published book that's ever been made on the planet. So wouldn't it be prudent to educate myself in something like that, and at least have, if I'm going to criticize or pass opinion on a subject, shouldn't you educate yourself in it before you do? And it's
You do.
and I think
they do,
that's really,
don't they?
and I think that's really important. And I know I was down the allotment, and my neighbour came to me, and he gave me a 4-pack CD, David, I think, um, the Bible, and a digital format. And so I started at the beginning and started reading Exodus, and
Exodus.
Exodus,
Uh,
Genesis.
Genesis, yeah,
Bob
Genesis.
Marley album, isn't it? It's a Bob
And
Marley.
I was, and of course, you come to realize that part of the Old Testament is edited as well. Some of it there are chapters within the Old Testament that have been taken out because it didn't fit with the narrative. Anyway, I started listening to this, and my neighbor came to me, "How's you getting on?" I said, "Well, it's really interesting. We lived for 400 years, and there's this, that, and the other. And if there's only what if and there's only one God, and if they don't believe in me, then you can stone them and this, that, and the other." I said, "Yeah, it's really interesting." And he says, no, you don't want to do that. Just get to the New Testament. And I thought, well, what's the point of that? You're being really selective in your education then, aren't you?
Mm.
Why not learn everything rather than just aspects of it? So no,
It's
I'm
a
not.
big book. It's a big book to
It
learn.
is book. It is a big book, and I know that they've tried to um, change the narrative on the Old Testament by omitting aspects of it as well and hiding it away. And there,
Who are you talking about? They.
well, uh,
Powers that be.
yeah, well, no, it was originally, it was it was it was written in Hebrew initially, wasn't it?
I
Yeah.
think it might have even been pre that. It might have the original text might have been Aramaic or something. But yeah, certainly in some sort of old Yiddish.
Yeah, before it, and then it was translated, and I think the earliest the definition in English was the King James. Um, so, but I always question, it's a bit like wars. If you win the war, you get to write history, and
Yeah.
it's as the Bible has been passed down from generations to generations. I think aspects of it is being created and omitted. Some of it's been omitted, some of it's been added to. Um, but the only way that you can, it's really interesting because I speak German and I listen to translations in German, and it really is not the right meaning. That it's an interpretation. It's
Yeah.
not a translation. You know,
Hmm.
a translation would be a factual. It would be factual to the word.
Yeah.
Translation is your interpretation of what's been what was said. And I think over the years, the Bible has been it's not a translation. It's an interpretation, and some of and anyway. So that's my view on it, and I was conscious to the fact that there are some people. He's a Methodist. He was actually quite high up. He was saying, forget about all the other stuff, concentrate on the new stuff. And I thought, how I'm not like that. I don't, I don't. So, but going back to, I don't believe so that I feel informed to a certain extent, not fully informed because I haven't finished the Bible. But I'm also, while I was traveling, I would listen to Muslims. I'd listen to other spiritual people, whether it be Buddhists, monks, and yeah, all sorts of ways of thinking. And I think so when I say I'm a nihilist, I say in so much as that um, before I was that, I was agnostic. I don't think you can prove it any way, one way or another. Um, but I'm open to spiritual thought, and I'll listen to spiritual thought. And if it's virtuous, then it probably, I'll heed that sort of information. But as for when it comes down to the nitty gritty, is there no? I don't. If we come and go, just like yeah, everything else on this planet, it's we all come and go. It's I don't think we just change. It's like when you can't actually destroy anything, even with fire. It turns to dust, and dust then goes into the air, and it produces smoke. I mean, it's an evolving thing, Um, is there a higher being? That's a good question. That is, and listen to a lot of scientists saying that, it's how it's incredible to think.
That blows my head.
Yeah, it's bizarre, really, isn't it? I mean, I don't think that we've got the capacity really to sort of
Yeah, I think the Scots have a phrase for that. It's above my ken. Ken being understanding, It's
yeah,
above my understanding.
Mm.
Bad Scottish accent,
yeah,
but you know what I mean. Beyond my.
yeah, yeah. I think so. And
So, can I ask you, John, do you believe we have spirit inside of us? Do you believe we have a soul?
good question. Now, there's a very good question. I believe there's an energy inside us. Scientifically, that we actually generate. We there is. Maybe you got 100 people put them in
Generate and receive.
it generates heat. We are generating. Yeah, we're alive, and it generates heat. Now, spirit. I would. That's a good question, that, because I've been very close to death of a couple of times, and surprisingly, I've said, if there's a God up there, now is when I need you. So
There
from
we are.
It's funny how that's the most common time for people to pray, isn't it?
Yeah,
100%.
Well,
I
not
think
pray,
me.
but
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's true, and it's true. But the thing is, Henry, though, uh, whether you're a Hebrew, a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jewish, I think it comes down to. But I also believe in karma, you know, and the Christians would say, "Do unto others how you expect them to do to yourself." And I think that's great. I think that,
that you're talking about virtue, and you talked about virtue being some of the Bible being virtuous, and you said if it's virtuous, I'll listen to it. My question is would be like, well, who invents that value, whether something is virtuous or not? It comes down to the individual. But Henry's question to you, John, was about do you believe there's a spirit inside you?
yeah, there's an energy. I don't know whether you could, yeah, I don't know whether I would call it a spirit, but there's definitely an energy within me. I'm a bit undecided what happens to that when you die. Funnily enough, 2 hours ago when I was talking to Tim, and we were talking about when
We were
you,
making plans for death, weren't we, brother?
yeah, we're talking about funerals and the cost of pine coffins and things like that. And
And whether it would be better and cheaper to donate your body to medical science.
and
Wow.
Tim was saying that there's there's an energy. There's what was the word that you used, Tim?
Oh, I don't know whether I want to go down that road because I don't know whether I was right in that. But I was saying when John first, I'm coming round to the idea, by the way, John. When John first floated the idea of kind of giving your body to science and to medical, firstly, part of me, from an egoic point of view, went, "Who would want my body? It's a bit high mileage, and I've done some things in my time that probably ain't great for my liver, my heart, my, whatever, my whole system, my brain." But part of me said, the phrase I used, John, was there's a resonant energy in it,
Yeah,
and he was like, what are you talking about, resonant? And I was saying what you're saying, John, is like we emit something as a being, that
yeah.
energy is in us and it resonates some energy. And therefore, in our body, when we die, there might be a resonance of us left in it. Yeah.
But
Do you think
you're
we've got a
right.
spirit, Henry?
So we went down
Yeah,
this rabbit hole.
absolutely.
We went down this rabbit hole. So if you cremated, then you do. Is it destroyed? If it goes into the ground?
No, you can't destroy energy because, like you said earlier, John, it just becomes something else because
Yeah,
we are part stardust, aren't
yeah.
we, from 13.8
So
million
do we
years ago,
do we
if
call
you
that a
believe in
spirit?
time.
Is that a spirit then? Is that a spirit within inside us, or what would you call it? I call it an energy. Perhaps Henry would call it your spirit. I don't know.
Source, spirit. Yeah,
Soul. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it. I don't. Well, actually, that time when I spoke to you, when I said, if there's a God, help me now. My soul wasn't hurting. It was my flesh and my body that was hurting. But
Yeah.
my energy was alive, more alive than I don't know. There was no impact on that at all.
Yeah.
I think that when you pass. That energy, where that energy goes, what that energy does, I don't know. I mean, I suspect that the Christian would think it would go to heaven. I don't know. But for me, I don't think perhaps I have no idea what happens to that. It goes up into the universe, and I don't know.
It becomes something else, doesn't it? Because it
Yeah,
can't last.
it evolves into something. I suspect. I suspect. Otherwise, perhaps the universe is, the result of the energy of thousands and billions of dead um, creatures,
I don't know, mate. It's above
and
my
that's why
ken.
it's
It's beyond our
expanding.
understanding, isn't it? But
I
what's
don't
for
know.
sure is that there's something that we all call, God or zero field energy, quantum, mechanics, the quantum field, maybe the soul, but it's
But in
all
reality,
definitely energy.
Henry, um, I've got to put a rational hat on and go, well, no. I think that we're at the end of the day, that
No what? No
I
what?
don't think there's a it, um well, that's why consider myself a nihilist, is that I don't think there's meaning to life other than when you are alive to have for happiness, and then once you pass, that's it. It's all over.
Yeah, we're not talking about meaning here, though, are we? When we're describing the
But I
energy
was
behind
answering
life.
Henry's question as to
Mm.
whether
Spirit. Oh, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
So, well, hang on. I don't know whether that's clear enough for me. So, because sorry, Henry, you should.
you jumped in a little bit.
go on, Ron. You good?
Okay, it was just to finish that off because actually the question was, do you think you got a spirit? You kind of said something was alive when you were near to death, and that's we don't have to attribute meaning to that. That just is.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Henry.
No, I think I would like John to answer that if you don't mind, John, because I think that's valid. Yeah, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
yes.
So did I not answer that question? Do I believe I've got?
You answered the
Well, I
question, but
just
not mine.
the way because you got very close to saying, oh, like there's an energy inside us, there's a source, we emit heat, there's something
Yeah,
within going on. But
yeah,
then you ended by saying there's no meaning and we're gonna die, and
yeah.
so
Oh, no, the question was, do we have a soul? Though wasn't it?
No, it was
yeah.
a spirit.
Spirit.
Well,
Tim, let him talk.
Yeah, but
yeah,
that was what the question was, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I believe we have a source inside of us, like you said, that thing that keeps us alive, whatever you want to call it, soul, spirit. I call it source, but
Yeah,
whatever you like. And I just think it was interesting the way that you shared the story about when you were close to death, you asked God and things like this, and
yeah,
you said that you almost acknowledged the life source inside of us, but then you put your rational hat on, right? And for
yeah.
me, that is like there's an element of these kind of things where you have to let go of understanding a little bit, and that might sound weak, but I promise it's not because
No,
it is bigger than us, right? And I think to when you said put your rational hat on it, to me that's almost like okay, well I can't fully wrap my head around it, so like I have to be in the real world and be realistic, and like to me that's not. I don't know. That doesn't feel fully rational because it's almost like trying to understand the spiritual realm through the physical realm. It's like
yeah. Well, I'm quite analytical, and empirical evidence is where I see um, where I can. It's a bit difficult because there's a lot of illusionists out there. David Blaine, the magicians, and make you believe that they can levitate, for crying out loud. And you can look with your own eyes, and it's clearly not happening because scientifically it's impossible for him to do. And so there is that thing inside of me, that energy that I was referring to. But then I've got to then I have to be devil's advocate and look at the other side and see which is more rational. Rational, if it's not, okay, we can live in fantasy, but I don't not to uh, say that it.
no, go on. I'm not
It's
easily offended.
all
Say what you
right.
think,
I
but
don't want to believe you can live in a fantasy world where where you believe that there's a reason and meaning behind life, and there's a God, there's a caring, and all this kind of stuff. I do believe that to be fantasy, um, but an element of it. I mean, the Bible's such an old book. Some of it has got to be true, and it's if you go back to some of the core beliefs in Christianity. They share a lot with Buddhism and other religions around the world. So I think that it's. I don't think that I would have to say, yeah, that there is it needs exploring. But from if I were to have to put my yeah. I'd like to think that we evolve and we go somewhere else and there's reincarnation, but
You'd like to think that, but you don't.
I don't really practically from an empirical point of view, I can, I can we unless it's your energy, yeah, I can see dead animals. I see it all the time on the allotment. You see, I see plants come and go. I see plants that live for hundreds of years. Um,
Well, I'll sort that out in a bit. So we're recording something. Can I Sam, cheers, bro. Sorry, guys.
No, it's all right. I think I'd like to hear from you anyway, Henry. Maybe your own question to answer your own question. Do we have spirit?
Yeah, well, my belief
did
is we
I
do.
answer your question, Henry?
Yeah, no, you did. You did. I was just picking up on the fact that you got close almost, I felt, to admitting that we did have a spirit, but then ended by
Backed off.
saying, "Oh, well, no, that's a load of hogwash almost." Like, to a
Yeah,
degree. Um,
it was a fact. I think when you're put in a position where you're going to die, you'll turn to anything. And I
yeah,
think I think what you'll find as you get older, a lot of people turn to religion because they're scared of dying.
sure. Okay. Well,
Uh,
I've had people say this to me actually. Well, oh, you're just a Christian because you wanna believe that you go to heaven, and I can tell you now, it's not true. It feels kind of cowardly to me a little bit. It's almost like before I believed in God, I didn't really care. Like I was living freely. Life was about having fun. I didn't have a deeper meaning. I think you're naturally quite narcissistic as a younger person anyway. And I only came to God as like, I don't know, about 22. I'm only 24 now, and obviously it's an ongoing process. But my initial belief began with realizing, for me anyway, that we have a spirit, that we have a source. There's something deeper than just this physical realm and uh, what we can see with the eye. So that's what my starting point was. And sure, I actually can't even remember where I was going with that. Sorry.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
Do you have a spirit?
yeah, sorry. So the afterlife, like people have said to me, oh, it's you just want to believe in that, but like I genuinely the idea of things just going black, it doesn't really bother me. Like I've experienced void before I was here. I assume it's just the same as that before I was born. We don't know anything about that. So this idea that you do it to like I don't know, just because it's more comforting. I don't believe in that. I want the truth, and I do actually believe that Jesus is our Lord and Savior, and that we do go to heaven. That's what I believe. So it's definitely not rooted in fear for me. I'm not doubting that it might be for some people, but um,
Mm.
yeah,
and if the thing is, I think with certainly with the Methodists, if you don't see Jesus Christ as your savior, then you won't be saved.
yeah, it does say you have to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
I would suggest, going back to the conversation of when you're near to death, and a lot of people reach out to God in those instances, and hearing John use the phrase, when I put my rational hat on, it brings me back to that is ego. That is the ego that it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It just is. It's part of our human existence. It's the thing that tries to protect you from dying. It's the thing that tries to kind of like says, if you do this, you'll be all right. And I think that's part of the ego's like role, if you like. And here's where I'm at with that in that from a spiritualist point of view, there is like this spiritual life, our soul, our whatever, our energy, our essence, our higher self that can communicate with the thing behind life, whether you call that source, whether you call that whatever. Um, and that's part of big mind. And then there's our little mind, which is the egoic kind of construction, the thing that invents what we think, how we feel, our values, our judgments, our virtues. And that's kind of they both have a role in trying to direct us, but sometimes they're conflictual, and we listen to the small self or the ego a lot more as a human, And that's why we kind of go down hedonistic routes, etc., especially when we're younger and exploring life. And then behind many of the scriptures, they're talking about a higher self that we're in constant communication with. If it wasn't for all those little thoughts that we have, like I put my rational hat on and listen to that. So there's this dual stuff that's going on, a communication to us, through us, as us, that is both of a higher kind of source and a lower constructed, invented source. So with the original kind of like answer to is it discovered or invented, that's why I think it's both, because we've got this little mind and this bigger, higher mind in constant communication with us.
Mm. I definitely hear what you're saying. We've got this duality to us, and there, I can't remember. I don't want to quote it wrong. There is a verse in the Bible about the things I hate, I do. The things I want to do, I can't do, and the things that I don't want to do, I find myself doing. And it's basically pointing to this dual nature that we may have the best intentions in the world, but sometimes we find ourselves doing the wrong things, you know? And I think that to me clearly points out the dual nature. And you could see that as flesh versus spirit. You could see it as source versus the enemy, God versus the devil, whatever you want to say. But I think to a degree, that's the same thing for me anyway.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah, it's but I think, I think it is a construct, a human construct. We all like to believe that there's meaning behind things, and I think that's a safety mechanism. I do
Wait,
honestly.
wait, sorry to cut in over the top of you, but you've gone from it's discovered to it's invented right now, aren't you?
I think it's I hear what you're saying about the small invention and the big invention, but
Not
the,
invention, because like the invention is only us from a small perspective. Um, yeah, I use the word um, big mind, little mind, or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, that's I would say that's an invention. Big mind, little mind. Yeah.
I don't see it as an invention because I think it is actually real and exists outside of us. I don't think maybe the terms might be inventions, but I do think it's real and actually exists.
But I think there's a duality. I think we all question ourselves. I think that, and there is, I think, but what we find, where we lay our hat is a protective, is a protection mechanism, I think, whether you choose to believe in your big mind and little mind, whether you choose to be a nihilist, a rationalist, and there's nothing there, just
Where's
get.
that protection coming from then, John?
Um, where's it coming from?
Yeah, when you're choosing and when you're acting in a way that's protecting you,
Well,
where's that coming from?
I think we choose the protectors. We protect ourselves when we don't know the answer to things.
Yeah, and I think that's partly ego construct, which is what I'm saying. It's kind of like it has a role to protect us, and I agree with you, Henry. There is some bigger stuff but I wouldn't say it's outside of us. I would say it is us. It is part of us. It's within us. In fact,
Mm.
that's what teachings of Jesus would point to as well, wouldn't it? It's like the kingdom is within um, from what little I know about the Bible. And like John, I haven't read it all, but I've read lots of it. I'd love to know what that
Have
verse
you
was.
read the Bible, Henry?
I haven't finished it yet. I'm in the process of reading it for the first time now.
All
It's a
right.
big book.
Yeah.
Is it? Have you started at the beginning?
I started off just, watching a lot of content on the Bible, and then I started reading from John, and then I'm nearly at the
Right.
end of Genesis now. So yeah, yeah,
So,
I've got a long way to go to be honest, but I've been
so you're reading it piecemeal, halfway, because John, that's a New Testament, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised. When was the last time you read a book in piecemeal? So you just open the book and start reading. It fascinates me
I I
how
rarely read, to be honest. I've never been someone that likes to read at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's
I
what I'm reading at the moment. You
what?
probably
Sorry, I
can't
can't
read
quite
that.
see it all. What is it? Oh,
Homo Deus, A Brief
Homo
History of
Deus.
Tomorrow. It's about like how Homo sapiens um, 2.0 is going to pan out. But it's an interesting read. Listen, you guys, I think we should leave questions of does God exist and the Bible and
But have we answered the
the
question,
meaning of
the
life?
topic? The meaning is this. So if we've had a conversation, I don't know how long it's been, but the topic was, is meaning discovered or invented? Now,
Yeah.
Tim said both. Henry said discovered.
Well, should we all summarize where we're at as a result of
Have
our
we changed
discussion?
our minds in talking to one another? I mean,
Personally, no.
what's your takeaway, Henry?
My takeaway is meaning is discovered. I think that, as I said at the beginning, God assigns our meaning to some degree. I think we have meaning because we're made in the image of God, and it's this pursuit of life. We're constantly evolving and constantly moving towards that. I think the ultimate meaning is to glorify God, and yeah, I think that's my takeaway.
Nice.
Yeah.
My takeaway is normally chicken chow mein and a special fried rice. However, in the purposes of this discussion, I don't think I've moved much from it's both discovered and invented because I believe that it is invented by our smaller minds, our egoic self, our human selves from within. And it is also discovered through within, within us and by us, as us, through us. Um, and we can all do that. We can find the kingdom of heaven. We can find happiness. We can find meaning. We can find all of that sort of stuff within ourselves. So, yeah. What about you, John?
I'm a bit. Um, I don't, what did I say? I think it was discovered. I do still, but I do think we invent things. Um,
And you've
but
also said maybe is no meaning as well.
that's very true. So, but really, I also said that the meaning to life was happiness. So I think that although the question, I can't really.
Did you invent that or discover it?
Well, the question really to me is that although it's been a good conversation, I don't think we really we agreed on what the word meaning was in the question. And from that perspective,
Fair enough.
I don't think that I can come. There's not a definitive answer to that. I think if it's meaning, what's the meaning to me in life? I think it's about happiness and discovering what makes me happy. And is and is it invented? I suppose to a certain extent, discovering it or not, you may need to invent it.
So I've
I don't know.
discovered I'm richer for this discussion and I love co-collaborating and love to chat to you guys again.
Yeah,
Yeah, top man. Thank you both very much.
yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, Henry. You
Yeah,
stop.
great to meet you, John, virtually.
Yeah. So have you stopped recording, Tim?
I haven't, but I'll push the record button again now if I can find it. So yeah, thank you very
I'll
much.